This is You've Already Been Hacked, recorded on 29 August 2020. To kick things off this week, we have a follow-up story from last week. The former Uber CSO, Joseph Sullivan, has been indicted for allegedly covering up the 2016 data breach at the company. The breach comprised personal data belonging to 57 million Uber drivers and passengers. The information included Uber's driver license numbers. Sullivan allegedly failed to disclose the breach while the FTC was investigating a 2014 breach at the company. The circumstances described in the case are both specific and extreme. The exact same conditions would have to be present for federal prosecutors to use this strategy in other cases, making it unlikely to set a broadly applicable precedent. Sullivan's indictment is the first direct example in the United States of a corporate executive facing criminal charges and prison time, up to 8 years in this case, over a data breach response. As such, it has the potential to usher in a new era of accountability for corporate officers who botch sensitive and high-stakes remediations. A Russian man arrested in connection with scheme to infect Tesla's factory network with malware. The FBI has arrested a Russian man for allegedly offering $1 million to an employee at Tesla's Sparks, Nevada factory in return for infecting the company's network with malware. The employee contacted the FBI. Igor Igorovich Krykova was arrested earlier this week and charged with one count of conspiracy to intentionally cause harm to a protected computer. The entire hack was a rare case where hackers decided to use the so-called malicious insiders, something I teach in my class quite often, a term the cybersecurity industry uses to describe rogue employees. Krykov said he was vacationing in the United States and arranged for the two to meet, with the Russian hacker traveling to Reno for this purpose. Throughout multiple meetings, the Russian revealed to the Tesla employee that he was working with a Russian-based hacker group and proposed the employee install a piece of custom-built malware on Tesla's internal network. The Russian said the malware, which the group spent $250,000 to build, would exfiltrate data from Tesla's network and upload it to a remote server. The plan was to steal sensitive Tesla files and then threaten to release the data unless Tesla paid a huge ransom demand. FBI agents arrested the Russian as he tried to leave the United States via Los Angeles over the weekend and charged him on Monday. If found guilty, he could face up to 5 years in prison for his roles in the scheme. The New Zealand Stock Exchange, NZX, had multiple issues this past week and halted trading as it attempted to deal with the effects of a distributed denial of service attack that hit its network starting on Tuesday. The attack is likely the work of a group that has been launching DDoS attacks against other high-profile financial service organizations, including MoneyGram, WorldPay, Venmo, and PayPal. The group demands a ransom to be paid in Bitcoin to stop the attacks. New Zealand Stock Exchange resumed trading on Friday after experiencing network connectivity issues for the fourth day in a row related to the multiple cyber attacks that occurred throughout the week. And the exchange had to modify its operations Friday morning in order to continue to get things up and running in an effective way. A cyber espionage campaign has exploited a vulnerability in Autodesk. Hackers launched a cyber espionage campaign against an international architecture and video production firm through a vulnerability in Autodesk 3D computer graphics software. The hackers managed to get someone at the company to download a malicious Autodesk plugin. Another key takeaway of the campaign is that it appears to have been launched by an advanced persistent threat mercenary group, or hackers for hire. These type of groups employ powerful tools which are used to do the bidding of the highest bidder. Threat actors of this campaign, who use South Korean-based command and control infrastructure, were potentially such a group. This particular hack was related to real estate investments. According to analysts at Bitdefender, the commoditization of APT-level hackers for hire could potentially entice rival luxury real estate investors involved in multi-billion-dollar contracts to seek the services to spy on their competition by infiltrating their contractors. Industrial espionage is nothing new, and since the real estate industry is highly competitive, with contracts valued at billions of dollars, the stakes are high for winning contracts for luxury projects and could justify turning to mercenary APT groups for gaining a negotiation advantage. Medical data has been leaked on GitHub. Medical data belonging to as many as 200,000 people was exposed on GitHub. The information from clinics, hospitals, billing services, and other healthcare-related organizations was not leaked by hackers, but was insufficiently protected due to faulty access control configuration and hard-coded credentials. Developers had embedded hard-coded login credentials in the code rather than using a separate configuration file on the server. In the case of email accounts or other online services, two-factor authentication was not enabled. At least one case was of an abandoned repository. The organization no longer needed the data, but had kept the repository around instead of deleting it. One database from a major regional clinic contained 1.3 million records. That database was exposed because an analyst was able to find the URL to the admin console of the electronic health record system. Developers need to be reminded and trained to not embed credentials or access tokens in code, which gets posted to public repositories. GitHub and other code-sharing repositories have introduced built-in scans and checks to help detect when credentials are being committed in code. But this is an ongoing problem. There should be regular security audits of all code to catch instances when mistakes are made. Organizations also don't have to default to having public repositories, where the code can be viewed by anyone. If there's no business need for publicly accessible code, don't post it to a public repository. NCR Corporation confirms malware is in its lab environment, but clients are not at risk, or so they say. NCR Corporation has confirmed to SC Media specifically that it found malware-infected computers in an isolated, non-production lab environment outside the United States. However, it claims its clients were never at risk of a secondary infection. The confirmation came after the CEO of a cybersecurity firm, Prevelian, exclusively told SC Media at the time that a Trojan had infected the popular point-of-sale and ATM software developer and expressed concern that this could potentially pose a supply chain risk to customers. In an official statement from the company, NCR disputed aspects of Prevelian's findings, saying, quote, "We have no evidence of actual command and control traffic leaving our network." Prevelian has held firm on its initial assessment, however. NCR's assertions that the infection took place outside the U.S. also run contrary to Prevelian's statement that malicious activity was traced to an NCR IP in Atlanta. However, the CIO of NCR stated, "I can't get into specifics on how our internal networks operate, but all of our IP addresses are assigned to the company headquarters." So what might look like information from the registration showing that the IP is located in one place or another, it's not. We register everything for our headquarters address. In its statement, NCR said that it was taking the infection seriously and working with cybersecurity risk management and network experts to assess the situation. All NCR systems and operations are functioning normally, and we have no indication that our supply distribution facilities or customers have been impacted. These computers are not part of our supply chain networks. Furthermore, our production and distribution facilities include, but not limited to, point of sale and ATMs are separate networks with comprehensive security controls, including malware protection, unquote. It's up to you on whether or not you think that any infection puts any of your data at risk. The Qbot Trojan is now hijacking email threads. A new variant of the Qbot Trojan is hacking email threads, according to a report from Checkpoint. Qbot, which is also called Quackbot and Plinkspot, has been in use since 2008. It is also capable of stealing information, installing additional malware, and conducting fraudulent bank transactions. The malware lands on a vulnerable machine via phishing documents containing URLs to zip files that serve VBS content, calling the payload from one of 6 hard-coded encrypted URLs. Once a PC has been infected, a new and interesting module in the modern Qbot variant, described by Checkpoint as an email collector module, extracts all email threads contained within an Outlook client and uploads them to the attacker's C2 server. A Qbot's malspam campaign launched this month focused on US and European targets, including government, military, and manufacturing entities. Malicious code has been found in an iOS SDK. A report from Sync describes malicious code being detected in an iOS software development kit that has been used in more than 1,200 apps. The vulnerable apps have been downloaded a collective total of more than 300 million times. The Mitgrol iOS SDK collects user data and steals clicks from ad commits, advertising, attribution, fraud. This information is logged and then sent to a remote server and includes details such as the URL that was requested, which could potentially include the identifiers or other sensitive information, headers of the request that was made, which could include authentication tokens and other sensitive information, wherein the application's code the request originated, which could help identify user patterns, and the device's identifier for advertisers, or IDFA, which is a unique random number used to identify the device, and the unique hardware identifier of the device, the IMEI. 8.3 million users have been infected by a data breach at FreePic. Hackers used an SQL injection attack to steal email addresses and password hashes belonging to 8.3 million FreePic and Flaticon users. FreePic is a website that offers free photos and design graphics. 3.5 million users had their email addresses and passwords bcrypt hashes harvested and exfiltrated by the attackers, while for roughly 230,000 users, the attackers got MD5 salted password hashes. Because passwords hashed using salted MD5 are easy to crack, FreePic reset the accounts for all 230,000 users and emailed them to change their passwords as soon as possible. For the other 3.5 million that were hashed using bcrypt, FreePic took no other measures besides notifying them via email to update their credentials. If you want to check if your credentials have been compromised in this particular breach, you can use the website haveibeenpwned.com, which has a huge database of accounts leaked after hundreds of websites and their breaches. The Democratic National Committee is warning campaign staffers of dating app dangers. The DNC has warned campaign staffers for Democrats running for office this year against oversharing on dating apps. Opposition groups could use online dating apps to gain a staffer's trust and then use that truth to pull sensitive information from the vulnerable hands of those staffers. The advisory comes amid reports that foreign governments are working to interfere in the November election. Campaign staffers were told to imagine any information sent to a dating contact showing up on the front page of the New York Times. Additional romantic advice included not posting video calls, text messages, emails, photos, or direct messages. Basically, anything they wouldn't want the opposition to see. That's all for the news this week. I'm your professor of cyber risk. We'll talk again soon.